Welcome to The Connection Code, a podcast where we explore the relationships that make your life and work just a little bit better.
Hi, I'm Rachel Gillman Rischall. I run a PR firm called 3PR. I'm a little bit obsessed with better for you food brands, but what really drives me is connecting people. I love being the bridge between two people who should know each other, and actually completed a challenge in 2024 where I tracked every introduction I made and connected 151 people, which led to some very interesting discoveries, which we'll talk about.
I'm obsessed with this. I'm Jeana Anderson Cohen, and I've spent about 13 years helping adult women make friends. So needless to say, I am pretty obsessed with friendship, which all leads us to what we're doing here today. We'll start every single episode of The Connection Code with a big question, but since this is the first episode, let's start with the question, why are we doing this? Rachel, should we talk about how we met?
Yes, it was a very kismet meeting.
We both know Sarah Spain, and she had a dinner at her house. I think you gave her the book that inspired it, right?
So Sarah is Sarah, for you, thank you for being such a wonderful and generous connector. And you pulled together this manifest dinner to blend eating and manifestation. And I brought, I think as a hostess gift, a copy of Priya Parker's incredible book, The Art of Gathering, which has forever changed the way I look at how people come together.
Same.
And I know you're obsessed too.
Obsessed.
And at that dinner, we realized we only knew each other from email, but we were meant to be friends.
So we had interacted via some of your clients in the past. Like all of them are amazing. A lot of them are amazing, good fits, and also like just wonderful companies that I love working with. I know you love working with. And since that dinner, I think we both were like, let's be friends. We've made purposeful, like monthly, meaningful time to connect with one another, right?
Yes. And here's the credit to you. I think a lot of people inadvertently meet somebody they really like and they spark. And then they think, I don't actually have time for a new friend, or I don't want to make the effort to boost this new friendship. So it's like, we should grab coffee sometime, or we should grab a drink in a couple months, or I hope we cross paths soon. But you, Jeana, said, let's make a friend date. And we put it on the calendar. And then we ended that friend date by putting another one on the calendar so that there was no way we could just let it slide by virtue of not having plans to look forward to. And then you were even extra thoughtful of like, let's do a workout, or do you want to go have a gluten-free meal? So I felt like you were really showing up as the kind of friend I wanted to have, which made it mutually beneficial.
So I feel like I was doing like science on you because everything you just named is like the result of me like being obsessed with friendship and like reading about it constantly and looking at studies. So a couple of the things you just said. So for people to go from like acquaintances to good friends to like the kind of friends that are like looking out for each other when things go wrong, it takes time. And there's actually science behind the amount of time. So if you want to become good friends with someone, it's really important to spend time. Up to 200 hours, honestly. It's supposed to take about 200 hours to consider someone a good friend. That's why you come out of things like a retreat or a trip thinking like, oh, these bonds are so good. I feel so close to these people.
Yes.
You have actually gotten closer to them.
It's the camp effect.
Exactly.
Like you've lived together, you're together 24/7, and your friendship moves at rapid speed.
Exactly. And then there's also this element of that I have absolutely stolen from pickup artists, unashamed, unabashed, because I also like the way that I am obsessed with friendship now. I equally fixated on pickup artists in my early 20s because I thought and think the fact that people exist to pick other people up is fascinating.
Yes.
And a lot of those tenets apply to friendship. Not the weird, like, physical ones or, like, making people feel like they are being negged, but the ones of, like, making time for each other, moving to a second location, exchanging information, like, all of that applies. So we had our initial friendship in real life at Sarah's dinner. We planned something for a second location, which, again, like, makes you feel closer, makes you feel like you're doing something together. And then I also, at aSweatLife, have, like, a 5-step process.
Of course you do. You have patented friendship.
A friendship process that I always pitch to people that it takes, and Sarah did a lot of the work for us. So she gathered us in a place. We had something to talk about. We had a lot of deep things to talk about because once we started talking about our manifestations and our goals, people were sharing things like you shared like these wonderful things about family memories. I talked about whether or not my husband and I were going to try to have children.
Yes.
So it was deep shares. So you're going from one level of deepness to another level of deepness. And then there's the act of like sharing contact info and then taking it to a second location. Those are our 5 steps. So I did all of the friendship science on you.
And it worked. And here we are.
And here we are.
And I'm so glad you did. But I think it makes a lot of sense. And it only works if both people are motivated. Everybody knows how awful it feels when you want to drive a relationship and the other person isn't meeting you even close to halfway. And it also feels good to be courted, but you have to show up in return and make sure both people feel invested in building this relationship.
For sure. Again, friendship is a lot like dating because it takes time. Relationships take time. But I do think that there are some things in maybe like in business relationships and friendships that we don't see talked about the way they are in romantic relationships. And that's that they end. Sometimes they aren't reciprocated, and those are losses too, which I'm sure we will get into on this podcast as well.
And we'll talk about professional relationships because I think you are uber passionate about friendship. And right now at this life season, I'm really fascinated by professional relationships. And I think you can apply tenets of friendship to your work sphere. But when people say, I hate networking or I'm not good at it, I really want to reframe that because I think everybody can grow their professional community. It's just about being generous and thoughtful and showing up without ulterior motives. We'll get into all of it, but there are ways and means and it can be fulfilling instead of obligatory.
Absolutely. I could talk all day about networking events, but I don't want to take all of our time on that. Any other reason why we're here? What do you think that we need to learn about professional networking that we haven't covered yet that we'll see on this show?
Oh, things we'll get into. I mean, we want to interview people who are really thoughtful and interesting and if we could interview Priya Parker, let's put that out as a dream. Priya, dream connection. Please join us. Please share your wisdom. But I just want to use myself as a little bit of a case study only in that the things that I've made mistakes on, I'm willing to share. The things I've learned the hard way, I'd like to share. And then again, tap into other people's wisdom or really great books we've read, articles, podcasts. Just be generous with knowledge so that other people can get somewhere faster, which has probably taken me the longer, more circuitous route.
Well, let's get into show and tell. So every episode, we'll usually have one show and tell. Because it's our first episode, though, we're each going to get to show and tell. Because it's a podcast, tell and tell. But because we're also recording video, show and tell. Rachel, now is an excellent time for you to talk about your connection experiment you did last year. What was the impetus?
So I would like to credit my very wise and wonderful friend, Nikki. We had a December 2023 brainstorming dinner, and she made this off-the-cuff remark where she said, Rachel, you connect a lot of people. Wouldn't it be interesting if you just kept a log of how many people you introduced in 1 year? And I love keeping track of things. I'm a list maker and a documenter and a information hoarder. So I started just on my phone in the notes section every time I put 2 people in touch. And just to clarify, this isn't if I gave somebody else's email or said, oh, you know who you should talk to. I had to be the one to either make the warm email intro or put the text together with the 2 parties. And I also strongly believe, as an aside, in consensual intros.
Absolutely agree.
Yes. So one of my pet peeves is when people will make an introduction where you're supposed to do the favor or the lift or be the helper, and they don't ask you first if you're up for it. And then you suddenly feel like you have this obligation to do something for somebody you don't know, and they didn't vet it first. So if I'm going to connect 2 people, and I know that one needs something from the other or would like to access something, I always go permission seeking first. And then the benefit of that is the person is primed. If they say yes, then you know they're going to do something with it. If they say no, then you've saved everybody the headache of putting that in motion. So 151 consensual introductions were made in 2024. And there were a couple learnings from that.
Okay, start with number 1. What's the biggest learning?
So my dad was a career recruiter, and he taught me a lot of lessons from having spent decades connecting people for jobs. And one of the things that he drilled was close the loop. So if somebody helps you in any capacity, makes an introduction, reviews your resume, helpful intro, great advice, and then you go on and take a next step, his point is circle back to that person who helped you and tell them what happened. Close the loop, say thank you, and let them know the outcome. Because the best part of introducing people is finding out a wonderful outcome. You got the job? Oh my God, that new business referral led to something. Oh, you made a new friend. Oh, you got this really fabulous trip that you planned with this travel agent that I mentioned. That's the joy. And so I find that most people don't realize this. It's not malicious. It's not meant to be insensitive. I think these intros are really appreciated. But maybe it just isn't ingrained to go back to the original person and say, thank you so much for that introduction. And this was the result. So I'm really trying to preach from a place of wanting to continually be helpful, but also wanting to be informed. Just close the loop. And the ultimate upside is that the person who helped you in the first place will be so much more invested in continuing to help you and advocating for you and showing up, because now they feel like, I have skin in the game. I helped them get that job. I made that introduction. This happened a little tiny bit because of me. And so now they're on your team. So close the loop, keep them invested. It helps everybody.
So what's so interesting is that the first time you said that to me, the first time I heard you talk about closing the loop, it had never occurred to me to send that follow-up email and say, hey, blah, blah, blah. Remember that introduction you made a couple months ago? It turned into new business for me. Or we met for coffee and we really get along. And once you said that, it was crystal clear to me the benefit of that, one, for the introducer, but also when I'm doing the introducing, how lovely that would feel. And so when I started doing your what do we want to call it?
Jeana's 2025 challenge?
My own challenge for 2025 based on yours. I too started thinking, what happened? Close the loop. It's only been a month. So I've started following up.
But you feel that.
I feel it.
Yes. And wait, for your 2025 challenge, which I'm repeating, how many intros have you made this year?
12 so far.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
How far are you?
13.
So, oh my God, great month.
So we're sitting here on this couch and 25 people have been connected in the endless month of January.
Yes.
Because we're trying to be a bridge.
Because we're trying. And you think about it more when you're doing the challenge. I don't want to distract you though, because I know you have more learnings.
Because my memory is so bad, I know I had 3 and I can only remember 2. So maybe they'll come to me. But the second learning is that sometimes people think I don't have anybody to introduce. And I think that's a fallacy and a limited belief. Everybody knows somebody. If you had a neighbor that was good at something, it's a friend of your parents, it's a babysitter, and you know somebody who needs a babysitter. Like, just if you really look at your life from like a macro perspective, you know a ton of people. And if you sort of pay attention, it almost feels like you're tapped into a game, like you're in the Matrix. And if you listen for it, you'll hear opportunities all day long where you can put people together. Somebody will say, oh, do you know a graphic designer? God, I need a photographer. Do you know somebody at this company? It just happens. And it feels really, really good when you can show up and be like, oh, I do. And even better when you know that person needs work or is hungry for introduction. So I think dispel the notion that you don't have a network or you don't know enough people to introduce, because we're all sitting on relationships and they can all be activated. And so the last point is, don't do this with an ulterior motive. And I am catching myself, and this is a little bit of an ego awareness moment. It can feel really good to be credited for introducing people or to be a good networker or a good connector or feel like you played this role. It does. It feels nice to know that you are of value and significance. But I think the best way to introduce and connect people is from a place of radical generosity. Just do it because it's the right thing to do, and invariably it will come back around. I have made all of these introductions primarily for free. Of the 151, I had 2 referral fees, and that was great. But every other intro was just because, right? And on the flip side, I got a lot of incredible introductions. And in fact, I got a great new client because a client of mine was like, you know who you should meet? And put that in motion. So I think it just karmically almost works out that if you show up with a generous spirit and the mindset of how can I be helpful, you too will benefit from that because that energy comes back around and people are very apt to make introductions on your behalf.
I think what's really interesting about that is I think taking your ego out of making connections is really important, but it also like sometimes it's okay to be driven by the good feeling, like the dopamine rush of getting credit too. Because I know we were talking a little bit before we were recording, and we won't say any names and I won't give any clues. But there was one person who you were really excited about connecting, and they didn't close the loop, and it frustrated you, right?
Yes. So I'm sort of sifting through this feeling of this was a situation where I was really hoping the person would tell me the outcome because I was pretty deeply involved in this introduction. And there is still a chance that they'll come back to me in some way and really acknowledge the work and effort that went in. So I don't want to prematurely have my feathers ruffled about it. But it goes back to my point that if somebody makes an introduction and then like really takes a couple next steps to help you, the right thing to do is to ensure they know what happened and how much you valued their contribution to that happening. And so I was telling you, like, I am sort of sitting with this discomfort of, can I make introductions and just release that into the world? I did a deed. I'm happy about it. Godspeed and good luck. Or do I need to feel credited and affirmed for my role in it? Because that is a little bit of an ego aspect. And you actually planted the seed. You said maybe there's a third path. And we didn't even talk about it yet.
So you were talking about, even like on that second option, you were talking earlier about how essentially like being choosier about who you make introductions for, just based on like essentially who you know will close this loop for you and will pull you in the way that you find meaningful. And I think there's validity. Both options are valid. And there is a secret third option where you upfront in making these introductions, just like in the way when you're in a friendship, when you're in a romantic relationship, you benefit from expressing upfront your expectations. So if you're making these introductions, maybe upfront you could say, hey, I love giving introductions. It fuels me.
Yes.
And what makes me feel really good is to know the outcome from it. So that instead of like 2 months later being like, what happened? Why didn't they close the loop? You can start to really like, because you make so many introductions and because like the world of Rachel is now a web of connection, you can actually teach the world how to connect better by instilling this value in everyone you can connect.
Okay, I love the idea of setting intentions up front and just sort of gently setting the table and saying, I'd be so happy to do this for you. And please, like, let me know on the flip side how it all turns out. I also feel like I have to say, I am sure I've screwed this up. Like, there are probably people out there who are like, Rachel never closed the loop. I never got the thank you note. I didn't hear about it. So by no means do I think I am faultless or that I have perfect manners, that I've never let this slip. So let me own that. It's just more about how moving forward, it feels really good to help people. And in turn, it also feels good to know that you are helpful. So there's a little bit of a virtuous circle in play. And if you don't know the outcome, you don't get that second hit of the dopamine or feeling really good about it. So I don't want to look as though I'm on some perfect pedestal of like manners and decorum. But I do love, ultimately in this podcast, the idea of helping people make better connections, sustain them, pay it forward. I mean, the other thing with why it matters to me so much professionally is before I started my own company, I had a tough exit from my last job. And people showed up for me in such an incredible, generous, and life-changing way. I didn't even realize until I had some perspective and distance how important it was that people in my peripheral network, not my best friends, not my family members, but people who were like a few degrees out, were so great about saying, oh, you're looking for work, you need a freelance assignment, you know who you should talk to. It changed everything, and it gave me a company that I am still so happy to be leading almost 8 years later. So I feel a sense of indebtedness, especially when people are without a job, if something abruptly happened, if it's a tough situation, to extend that same help and that same spirit. And in turn, I hope that other people will do that. Like, we need to show up in the hardest moments, and we need to be generous with our networks. If you have great relationships, don't close that door.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of an amazing network if it's closed?
A walled city, a walled city has no trade.
Ooh,
so
well said, yes.
I did steal that from the Romans, and that was the fall of Rome, but building walls just doesn't help you. So if you amass all of these connections and they're only your friends, it's not going to help anyone. Because I just think, I think of the world as connected by super connectors. You're a super connector.
But we all know them and we love them.
Yeah,
right?
We love a super connector.
And the world thrives with people who are like, whoever I know, you know.
Exactly. If you need exactly. If you need a connection, like, I'm happy to do that. And I honestly, I feel like you deserve the dopamine rush. You deserve it.
So do you.
Yeah.
Think of all the friendships that have happened because you connect to people.
Speaking of friendship, should I give you my show and tell?
Yes.
Okay. So my show and tell, I want to talk about the friendship matchmaking dinner. So recently, the source of all of this also goes back to Priya Parker's book, but we'll get there. We were on a retreat at Miraval. Sarah Spain was also there, and a bunch of friends. There were 30-ish of us total, including my mom and mother-in-law, and Sarah's mom and sister, and just a really great group of mostly women. And my husband. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Justin. You did great. The first night we had a dinner, and because of the work I've done in friendship and also the inspiration from Priya Parker's book, I think it's very important to set the tone for something like a retreat that's going to be 3 days, or even a dinner that's going to be 3 hours. You need people to understand what they're walking into, and what the expectation is and what the intention is. Priya Parker talks about it being a disputable sort of intention or reason for gathering. So I wanted that to be very clear. We are here to make friends. We are here to form connections, and we are here to sort of manifest things because we had Sarah there. We were bringing it back to manifesting. Yes. So that first dinner, I wanted to test, because I love doing science experiments on people, as you have learned. I wanted to test a couple of the concepts she talked about in the book. So there was... at a dinner party, she talked about specifically giving people a job. She talked about the importance of essentially doing place cards and putting people where you want them.
Yes.
Which I had never been pro place card before this moment. Because it also, and I'll talk about this forever, but I'll just give you the brief of what I noticed. It takes decision fatigue out of it.
Yes.
No one had to be like, can I sit with you? It was immediately like, I know where to sit.
And it removes unwanted vulnerability.
Yes.
Because what if somebody says, oh, I'm actually saving that seat, or you just have to feel a little bit awkward. And I'll say, I went to this retreat and I loved it, and I went alone. I knew you and I knew Sarah, and that was it. But I knew that you would create a safe space to make new friends and feel at home, even with 30 women that I had never crossed paths with before.
And a lot of them I had never met either, so I had to kind of do a little digging on who they were and what they cared about. So I stalked these people a little. I got a sense of what they cared about, and then I grouped them into 3 tables. And at the tables, the jobs were, I gave people questions to ask. And the third thing that I stole from Priya's book was the discussion topics and setting a timer. So one thing she noted was at a dinner party, when you have a kickoff question or a discussion moment, it is not anyone's fault, but there are people who are extremely comfortable with hearing themselves talk, and there are people who are extremely comfortable with falling into the wallpaper. And so I put someone in charge of a timer at each table. Every table had a different relationship with their timer, but at the very least, you knew everyone got a minute to answer the question, so that no one was lost in the milieu. Milieu is a group. Whatever. Choose the word you like better. No one got lost in the conversation.
It was a great equalizer.
I like to use a timer in everyday life. It was the result of being a fitness trainer for a while. Just timers are very...
Just do it with my kids. You can complain for 60 seconds and the timer's done.
Wait, do you do that?
No, but I'm going to steal that now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Complain about anything you want for 60 seconds, go.
Yes.
I feel like I could do that with my husband, too.
Yes.
So I felt like all of those moments were really connecting for the people at the dinner, to the point where like at the end of the night we had to be like, everybody, it's time to go.
Yes.
Like, get out of here, dinner's over. How did you feel? Do you feel like it worked?
Absolutely. It felt like the difference between climbing a ladder and taking a slide. There was just no work. And I think, as you and I both know, in our professions and our work worlds, we're accustomed to spending time and effort getting people to open up, or having to sort of like carry the conversational water, or just really try to get people to engage. And you and I love deep talks, not small talk.
No.
But because of how thoughtfully this was set up, with a moderator, a timer, questions, assigned seating, it just allowed people to go right in. And you didn't feel as though you were on different pages. Like, everybody came to play.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved.
Oh, thank you. I would do that again in a heartbeat. I think there are some people who felt really comfortable with the deep talk. I know you and I did. But there are some people who it takes a minute to warm up.
Sure.
So I think it allowed us to sort of say, like, no, we're warmed up now. Like, we're here, we're friends, this is what we're doing. So I've stolen a couple things from Priya Parker ongoing, like aSweatLife's monthly happy hour. I make sure that there's always an activity and an intention, so people know like what those are when they're coming. For example, this month we're doing a little bit of volunteering while we drink wine or mocktails. So I think it's just meaningful to give people a reason why they're there.
Yes. And like a centerpiece, like something to focus on that gets everybody in a place where they can feel like a contributor and a participant.
Yeah, because I think in relationship building, whether it's for professional relationships or whether it's for friendships, the worst case scenario is to stand in a room with no one to moderate and be told to connect. With no prompt, no rhyme, no reason. Because it puts everyone on a different playing field based on like what your strengths are.
Yes. I won't name the event, but I went to a networking, a business networking breakfast for a client recently. And I am not a shy person, but I thought I would know more people. So I just walked in, and the room was primarily men. It was 8 a.m. I recognized almost no faces and had this moment, like that 8th grade freeze, where I thought, who should I talk to? What should I go up to them and say?
Right.
And where should I sit? Because it was open seating.
And
so I looked for other women, basically, because there were so few of them.
This is why the girls end up lumped in a corner.
Yes. And found friendly faces. But it really made me think about how it could have been a better event if they had arranged the tables by people who should meet each other with the assigned seating, perhaps question prompts, or just even like a welcome and help people segment so that you're not milling around looking at someone's name tag, which is the worst. Where do you work? Where do you work?
What do you do?
Yes.
What can we do for each other?
Yes.
Puke.
It was all transactions, no relationships.
Yes. I can think of a million events like that. I also can think of the events that I decline, the networking events that I decline that are in my inbox or in my LinkedIn inbox, where someone, like, I won't name a name because I really think he has the best of intentions.
We're doing so well with not naming names.
Yeah. But because I want to, I mean, like, how much do we want to swear on this podcast?
We're definitely swearing, but we're not naming names.
Great. I think that's reasonable.
Yes,
I don't want to talk shit.
No.
In life, I just generally don't like to talk shit or be negative. But I do think there is a way to share information about negative things that doesn't make anyone feel terrible.
Yes, it's an art that I am working towards.
Yeah, same. So there's this particular gentleman who has the best of intentions, and every single opportunity that he sends me is a sporting event, a steakhouse dinner, or some sort of like bar happy hour. And I have declined on multiple occasions. And one time he sent me a note asking specifically because I am a woman to come, because they need more women in the community. That's all I'll say about that.
That feels really special.
Yeah. I felt really included. I felt like my presence was wanted for a lot of reasons.
All the right reasons.
Yeah. But again, like, I just think people don't have the knowledge we have, aren't paying attention in the way we're paying attention. And maybe they'll listen to this podcast.
Yes. And I will say, I am in my 40s, and Priya Parker's book hit me like a ton of bricks because I couldn't believe how I didn't know these things or hadn't thought that way, which makes me want to extend a lot more grace that we do have archaic traditions around gathering, and we do things because it's habitual. It doesn't mean it's right. It's just the way it's done. And so in reading her book, it makes you look at family reunions, birthday parties, weddings, work retreats, corporate events, and think, oh, we don't have to do it this way only because that's the template we followed previously.
Well, I really think it's the way we've always done it is a great reason to just keep doing things a certain way. No?
It's always worked so well.
Yeah, it works so great. All right, Rachel, are you ready for a connection conversation?
Always.
I want to know, since the name of the game of this podcast is all about connections, networking, friendship, relationships, who is your dream connection?
My dream connection right now is Gail King. And I'll tell you a little backstory.
Okay, great.
So I connected with Gail, I think it was in 2020, and I was working with a company called Tovala, and was able to, through Oprah's creative director, get in touch with Gail, and she was going to try Tovala because we were quarantining, and it was a great food solution. And a lot of steps were incurred, but Gail called me one night. And I couldn't have been, I obviously didn't even know the number, but I answered, thank God, and it was just Gail King on the phone. And tried to be, a grown-up, tried to be composed. My little twins are running around. We're in quarantine hell. But that was the beginning of this funny relationship where Gail became a Tovala customer, which was great. It became one of Oprah's favorite things. She would reach out to me if her oven wasn't working, and I would do my best to troubleshoot without actually knowing what to do. We developed a little texting back and forth, happy birthday, messages here and there. She couldn't be nicer. Like, clearly such a lovely, kind, and special human being, but I've never met her in person. And now we are in the year of 2025, and I would just love to give Gail a hug. I just want to say, hi, it's Rachel. We connected 5 years ago. Tovala, and thank you. And also, I just admire you greatly. I think you do such wonderful things in the journalism space as a figure in the world. Like, I love the way she talks about parenting. I love the way she shows up with friendship. I think she's one of the good ones. And so Gail would be my dream connection.
Ooh, and you could talk about that miso glazed salmon.
I don't think she eats fish. Or she's into the fish.
Really?
But
I love the fish from Tovala.
The fish is good.
Yeah.
So Gail, one day.
Give it a try.
Yes.
Give it a whirl. Okay, Gail.
Who is your dream connection?
So I had a hard time because I have a lot of dream connections, but I'm going to go with Kellie Gerardi, who is a female astronaut. And she is really part of a lady gang of female astronauts.
I love this.
I do too. So there are a lot of reasons to love her. One being that she is very open about her journey as an astronaut, her journey as a dreamer, someone who's had this dream to go to space. I'm sure that you follow her. With
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes. Did she speak at the Museum of Science and Industry?
Oh my God, probably. If I had known, I would have gone.
Because I'm pretty sure my future astronaut was in the audience.
Oh, did she have lovely long dark hair?
My parents took her.
Okay.
Yes.
So she's great for so many reasons. Because she inspires young girls, and because she is unapologetically herself, showing that young girls can grow up, be themselves, and conquer STEAM fields, which is great for a parent of a future astronaut like you who went to space camp, by the way.
Kayla.
And also, she's very open about her journey with fertility, which I just think from all angles, she's unapologetically herself, and she is unapologetically helpful. And last but not least, I think just her relationship with the other female astronauts of the world is so cool to watch. They're doing an all-female flight in 2026, which
Is that the one to the moon?
I don't believe it's to the moon. It's just all women to space.
Okay.
If they're going to the moon,
Kayla,
that would be dope.
my 10-year-old, I feel like she had an Artemis shirt, and she was trying to educate me on the all-female mission, but I don't know my missions as well as she does.
Maybe Kayla needs to stop in and tell us all what the mission is. Okay, well, I will find a link, and we will get our answers, but I'm very excited for this. And
Kellie.
let's close the loop on Kellie. She's also currently pregnant. So IVF, we're 6 weeks along, but she's, again, very open about the journey, being 6 weeks along in her pregnancy, sharing the highs and the lows so that she can get support too, which is lovely. Love Kellie.
I think part of it wasn't a connection crush, but that's not what I'm saying, is...
Why not?
Yeah, or just the person you're, like, coveting a relationship with. I think you and I, if I can speak you for a sec, we love people who are open.
Yes.
Like, really real, this is how it is, unafraid to be vulnerable and share. So to be an astronaut and not project sort of this, like, 1960s era, I don't have an inner life, I'm robotic and I just do the thing, versus I want to be a mom and an astronaut and I can have community with all the other female astronauts and not be competitive. I love that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, if you think about who came before them, too, Sally Ride probably had to be a robot, because if she was herself, which maybe is exactly Sally Ride as we saw her on TV, or maybe herself had more dimensions that we didn't see, you know? So she had to probably project an air of perfection.
Yes.
In a way that today's female astronauts don't have to, because there are more of them. So they don't have the token effect working against them.
True.
Which is so lovely. And we also just don't have time to be split personalities. No. This isn't Severance. This is real life. By the way, are you watching Severance?
I'm doing the thing I tend to do, which is I read all about something and then never watch it. So I've read amazing coverage of Severance and not seen an episode.
I really think that you would like that show, but it is, at this point, you're a season behind.
Assume I'm not going to watch, but I love this idea, though, of having separate cells, because actually, I'll pull it back.
Yeah.
I think one place where people go awry in their professional networking and relationship building is that they think they have a different work self than their personal self. And for better or worse, I'm one self. Like, I'm always Rachel in every situation. It's sort of I have an inability to compartmentalize. So I actually think in running my own business, it's been the best thing, because you hire me and that's who I am, or we're not a fit and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think the best networking can also occur when you show up as a full human being who cares about someone's family's experience, or you're sensitive to what's going on in their particular transition.
Yeah.
And you're not just looking at them as a resume or a LinkedIn profile, but a 360 perspective.
Yeah.
So no severance.
No severance.
No work self and home self.
Well, it's not really working out for the characters on the show. So I can tell you it wouldn't be great if you had your brain severed. Okay, so before we close this out, you and I met to talk about the podcast, what it was all about, why we were doing it, and we talked about measuring it. And I loved the way we decided to measure it. Do you want to talk about how we're measuring this podcast?
Yes, but this is a credit to you, because I think, in full disclosure and honesty, it's very easy to go to the place of, does the world need another podcast? What can I possibly add? It's such a crowded space. Will anybody listen? There's just a lot of noise that you can create in your own mind about why not to do something. And then you said the best thing, which completely shifted my mindset, which is, let's only use joy metrics. Are we enjoying ourselves? Is this strengthening our friendship? Are we having conversations that enliven us and give us energy and we're learning? And if those things are a yes, then that's a wonderful reason to create this podcast.
I really love that you credited me for that, because
it was you.
Well, I feel like we also got there too by talking about the source of the name of this podcast, which is Dawn Jackson Blattner.
Dawn, yes.
Yes, who is a walking joy metric. And I learned, I think I stole that completely from her. She actually says that joy is her compass, which is delightful and true. And if you ever meet her, you will see it immediately, that joy is the thing that guides her through life. So joy is what we measure on this podcast, the connection code, which Dawn unknowingly, willingly, joyfully named for us. Thank you, Dawn.
Yes, thank you so much.
DJ, as she's known to everybody else. Well, should we wrap it up?
Yes, this was so fun.
I had fun too.
Any excuse to have a conversation with somebody I enjoy.
Yeah, honestly. It's basically exactly what we've been doing at Midtown, but just, like in a soundproof room.
Yes.
Soundproof adjacent. This has been an episode, the first episode of The Connection Code, a podcast about friends, connections, and work, and everything in between. This is a production by two friends, Rachel Gillman Rischall and Jeana Anderson Cohen. You can follow us on Instagram at Rachel Gillman Rischall and at Jeana Anderson Cohen. And on LinkedIn, for the professional shorties, by looking for our names, we both rock two last names, so we've got that going for us. And hey, if you have a line to our dream connection, shoot us a DM or a message. We would love to hear from you and make connections for you too. Bye.
Bye.